you very much.
Madam Commissioner and Commissioners, Fred Collins, Tribal Administrator, Northern Chumash Tribal Council. We are here to speak in opposition to PG&E's application. The Northern Chumash Tribal Council has submitted documentation for you folks to review already. We're here today, myself and my family, we're here today to talk about the spirituality that hasn't been talked about. Throughout this whole process of this morning, not once, I think maybe once, we've heard a mention of cultural resources. Our family's been living along this coastline for over 18,000 years. We have a very, very close connection to the animal nations and the plant nations that live in conjunction with the Chumash people. My family and our families come from the village right there where they built Diablo Canyon. And Diablo Canyon is built on a sacred site. 10,000 years ago, the ocean was 300 feet lower, and the ocean shores were 3 to 6 miles out further into the west. And so these areas out off our coastal waters are very precious to us. They hold wonderful treasures of the Chumash Nation. The things that we are looking at in the future is the technology is improving, so that we need to save and protect these areas in a way that in the future we can learn something and put pieces of the puzzle together that are missing. This Coastal Commission has been, our ally for many, many years along our coastline, and I want to thank you very much for supporting the Native American issues. This is the biggest issue that's ever been along our coastline. This is the one, and we cannot let this happen. And it's encouraging to hear what the staff has done, and we support the staff on their recommendations. And you will hear more from my relatives, my brothers and sisters and cousins here. And I want to thank you very much for the time and the opportunity. Please do not let this project go forward, and we do not support this project.
Haku, Commissioners, good afternoon. I'd like to share a little story about Diablo Canyon. That was put on us when the Europeans came and saw our villages in this canyon with our sacred fires and our families. And they called us the Diablo worshippers. But in this country, 80% of our people were destroyed. We're the dolphin people, Alukoi. That's our home. We do our winter solstice there. Our elders tell us of a story about the weather stones that are in the ocean on the coast. We have our cultural value, cultural life, and we practice it. There was a disaster there with an evasive clam that killed our abalone, the pink and the red and the black, or the green. And then we traveled back to the islands on our tomols, our traditional plank canoes. And the following day, 911 happened. And I'm sure that affected all of you. You got to keep in mind that our history is a part of your history. You bury your dead on our land too. This will always be our home. We have 14,000 years, so scholars, archaeologists, anthropologists say, that make a living off of our culture. Our elders say we have maybe 30,000 years, and we were here with the pygmy mammoth when they were on the islands. We teach our children their relationship to the dolphins and the memory that our whales carry. As families, they travel on their pods and they mourn the death of their loved ones, just like you do. We can hear about little boxes in area 1 and 2 and 4. We don't need this one, or it's red or green, or a little bit of a take, or is it a big take? What is the impact on these resources that are part of our cultural lifeway? Our village sites that are submerged, and burial sites that were put on the shorelines so that they go back home into the ocean. That's our lifeway of practice. And when we come together and we watch grizzly bears disappearing or golden-backed wolves, and we fought for the condors to eliminate lead bullets on condor habitat, we did that. When there was 22 left, and now we have these grandfather otters that are threatened. We were promised an abundance of food and land for the future when we crossed that rainbow bridge to the mainland for the generations to come. You carry the tear of the whales on your hand. And it's up to you to make that decision. Not a bunch of smoke and mirrors and consultants that are paid to tell us what we want to hear, but the truth. We just went through campaigning and we re-elected a black president. The generations depend on your decisions. Things are changing, times are changing, but our culture will always remain. Those evasive clams, the destruction of our grizzly bears, the disappearance of our abalone. Don't wake up this land by this testing, because you'll regret it. This is what our ancestors say. This is what we do when we come together to appreciate the beauty and the sensitivity of this life that we sustained ourselves and coexisted with and respected this balance of life. Now we are text and email. We don't even want to hear or see or taste or touch that realness of natural human condition of life. So we can have the consultants, or we can have the regulations that we have to follow. They weren't made for us, because if it was, we wouldn't be standing here. We trust you, and I appreciate your consideration to deny this project, because God knows no one has the permit to take lives. Thank you.
Haku Haku. My name is Krystal Baker. I'm a member of the Coastal Band of the C.O.A.S.T Nation. And when this proposal first came before the State Lands Commission, I went onto the internet and I did some research of what seismic testing had done previously in other areas. And I suggest you guys do the same thing. I just wanted to put that out there before I start speaking for my tribal people. The Coastal Band of the C.O.A.S.T Nation, a sovereign California tribe of over 2,600 members, and our ancestors have occupied the coast of California from Ragged Point down to Santa Monica Mountains. We have several concerns with the high-energy seismic testing process that is being proposed on California's Central Coast, and the negative impact it will have on marine relatives, submerged cultural resources, and our cultural and traditional take, as well as our spiritual connection. Traditional take. The loss of marine life endangers traditional practices such as fishing and gathering. The C.O.A.S.T peoples continue to fish and gather different species not for monetary value, but for personal use. These personal uses include medicinal consumption, ceremonial dress, and prayer offerings. This type of ecocide will affect generations of the C.O.A.S.T people and contribute to intergenerational trauma. Safety. It has been stated publicly by Pacific Gas and Electric that going to the beaches or into the waters during the seismic testing could cause illness and even death to fishermen, divers, kayakers, boaters, surfers, and swimmers. Many of our members participate in the C.O.A.S.T Maritime Association. C.O.A.S.T peoples paddle our traditional watercraft called a tamal in the same waters that our ancestors did. For many years, our tamal was not used, but in 1976, the Brotherhood of the Tamal was formed and they built the Helix, and once again, our tamal was on the waters. Today, the C.O.A.S.T peoples encourage keeping up this tradition, and the 3D geophysical seismic testing process infringes on our indigenous right and threatens to put our paddlers at harm. Cultural resources. As stated in the final environmental impact report, there are several submerged Native American cultural resource sites due to the rise of the waters over thousands of years. We also want to mention that recently there are Native American cultural resource sites that have fallen or are falling into the ocean due to erosion. As fragile as artifacts and human remains can be, they cannot withstand cables, nodes, large anchoring, or the effects of seismic wave phenomenon. To prevent disturbance of these cultural resource sites, we recommend no seismic testing. Our spiritual connection. The Rainbow Bridge story is also known as the Chumash creation story. The story has been passed down from one generation to the next and is even told in some schools today by teachers to their pupils. This story tells of our Chumash ancestors crossed from the Channel Islands to the mainland by walking over Rainbow Bridge. According to the story, the ancestors had looked down, had fallen, and became dolphins. The end of the story states, and so today, dolphins are our close relatives. There are many other stories that are told that are very similar to this one. All of these stories discuss how sacred the waters are and how we are connected to the marine life. Whether it's how the Tamal paddlers pray with each pull of the water, or an offering given before taking a fish to feed the families, or a song for the ancestors that live within the waters. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Mooney, DRC. I'm from the Ahashiman Nation, one Innu Band of Mission Indians, and I'm Executive Director of the Sacred Places Institute for Indigenous People. First, I want to say that I'm here as an Ahashiman woman to support my brothers and sisters from Chumash territory, and to let you all know that when PG&E, which we understand they plan to propose similar testings off of my tribal territory, we will object, and we're putting that objection on the record now. This is unacceptable for the same cultural reasons that my Chumash brothers and sisters just mentioned. Additionally, I want to highlight while I want to thank the staff for its extensive work and its overall recommendation that the Coastal Commission deny this permit, I do want to highlight one particular issue where I think that the staff report was actually not correct. And that's in the staff report assessment that there is compliance with respect to Section 30244 of the California Coastal Act, which says where development would adversely impact archaeological or paleontological resources, reasonable mitigation shall be required. The reason that I think the staff report was incorrect here and why I'm urging you all to vote that in fact this consistency certification is not in compliance with that section is quite simply there's not enough information to make that determination yet. By PG&E's own cultural report, there's likely to be submerged cultural resources. Now, what they do is they cite this other report that they did that is CSLC 2011A, which admittedly in terms of their own report was focused on identifying shipwrecks and not submerged cultural resources. Look, if I commission a report that says study post-World War II architecture, and then I cite that report to say there's been no identification of pre-1850 architecture, clearly that report's not going to be valid. So I urge you to say that this is not valid with respect to cultural resources because in fact it's likely to damage cultural resources and there needs to be more study to determine what those impacts on submerged resources are. Thank you.
My name is Marcus Lopez, co-chair of the Bottomland Chumash Council. I'd like to recognize and thank all the commissioners here and staff. The Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, passed by the United Nations some 4 years ago, describes certain things within our rights, our human rights, our indigenous people's rights. And that right is self-determination, and that right is to protect our culture and our religious aspect of that, our spirituality. PG&E is attacking our very spirituality by blasting our relatives. You have cousins, uncles, aunts, grandmothers, and grandfathers. These are our aunts, brothers and sisters, cousins, and grandmothers and grandfathers. You have the opportunity to join the indigenous peoples of the world and recognize this document by listening to these few indigenous people here to address this very serious matter. Protect our relatives, protect our right and our spirituality under American Indian Religious Act. Protect that right on the Articles 19 and many articles within the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the Covenant of Nation States of the World. And within that, I recognize my time is over. And within that, we can join the community of peoples to protect our resources for the next generations to become good ancestors and caretakers of the land.
Thank you very
Kino
much.
one.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I represent a large group down in Southern California. We have similar issues as they do up here in Diablo Canyon. So in researching this earthquake issue, Dr. Lucy Jones, a Pasadena seismologist, she had mentioned that the magnitude of an earthquake may change after the earthquake starts. So it's impossible to know a magnitude of a fault when the crust can change. And so I did more research. You can go to the USGS fact section, and it says, neither the USGS nor any other scientists have ever predicted a major earthquake. They do not know how, and they do not expect to know how anytime in the foreseeable future. It's that simple. There is a probability that over the next 30 years there will be a major earthquake occurring in the San Francisco Bay Area, 67%, and Southern California, 60%. I even went to the British Geology Survey, okay? They do mention how in the Ring of Fire, which we're in along with Fukushima, that we definitely have higher probabilities here. We're a very active zone. But there is no reliable method of accurately predicting the time, the place, the magnitude of an earthquake. All attempts to predict earthquakes have been generally considered failures.
Good afternoon. I'm John Giesman, attorney for the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. My client unalterably opposes the relicensing of the Diablo Canyon plant. We're supportive of these studies. We agree with your staff report that this particular proposal is not ready for approval. Now, I heard PG&E this morning say that they were prepared to meet each of the recommendations of your staff report, and I'll leave it to your attorneys to determine whether you are legally capable of offering a conditional approval. But one way or the other, whether you follow the staff recommendation or choose to incorporate their proposals, I don't think PG&E can satisfy those requirements and get in the water this year. To my friends that would say, let's simply close the plant, perhaps in a better world we would. But my experience with now nearly 40 years power plant licensing suggests it takes hard data. Thank you very much.
My name is Hunter Kilpatrick. I'm the West Coast Director for the California Gray Whale Coalition, a lifelong resident of Estero Bay. I represent more than 140 organizations and make a living on the coast of California, and I highly resent only having 1 minute to talk right now. Sorry, there are a lot of people. You've got my input. Most of this is, I've just got to throw this away. The EIR, all the reports have completely left out the highly endangered western gray whale. 14 of them were seen off California last year. That's better than 10% of the population. They're in our waters right now. There were 35 whales sighted off of the Central Coast last weekend. That's the only thing I have to add to the report you already have. I stand here to request the Commission to call for a thorough and public investigation into the deaths of the 8 harbor porpoises that died a week following the low energy work in Estero Bay. I call for a public investigation into the sea otter death during the capture of 42 of them. This was done by the Fish and Wildlife Service, urging to use this test as a test on what will happen to these animals. Please.
Thank you very much. You all hear somebody ceding their time to you? How many people are ceding their time to him?
I won't use it all, just to finish this. Thank
people?
you. We support the recommendations of your staff. They work tirelessly through a lot of communications with us. You have all the input, all that information about the western grays. They're out there. The northern elephant seals are out there. They're migrating. They're pregnant. They can't be detoured. Detour will cause mortality. They will land on unprotected beaches. They time their arrival to the day. They don't know. They didn't get the memo last year. They got to leave early because of this.
Hello, my name is Irene Yoga, and I'm here speaking for my grandchildren. I just want to stress the importance of the interdependence of us all on each other and on the animals that we have taken such advantage of in the past. I'm taking an oceanography course right now, and they talk about the importance of the phytoplankton, which supplies 50% of all the oxygen we breathe. The whales and the marine mammals supply the manure that grows that phytoplankton. They're not just beautiful, they are essential. As my oceanography teacher pointed out, please everyone pause and take 2 breaths. Thank the ocean for the second breath that you just took. We've ravaged it long enough. The ocean is not an endless resource. We have used it up to a point where hopefully we still can save it. For my grandchildren, for your grandchildren, and for the whales, thank you.
My name is David Baker. I drove down here this morning from San Luis Obispo, and I surf incessantly in that area. Probably 98% of the time that I'm in the water is near Box 4. And I would just like to say that I am opposed to this project, and as well as most everybody that I know that lives in the area. My primary concern in coming down here is to advocate for ocean recreationalists, because I don't think that damage should be done to ratepayers and citizens of our country by anything that, well, you have all the information, et cetera. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very, very much. Jerry Rubin, I live here in Santa Monica, and I'm a longtime environmental and anti-nuclear activist. Welcome the Coastal Commissioners here in this landmark historic civic auditorium in its east wing. And right near our landmark 26-foot tall chain reaction sculpture that warns of the dangers of nuclear escalation. I urge everyone to visit it here. I want to thank Surfrider, NRDC, the Sierra Club, etc., etc. You can be pro-nuclear or anti-nuclear. There's only one word to describe this plan: ludicrous. You know, they stopped nuclear weapons testing, overground and underground. They figured out a way to do it through computers. PG&E, there's a simple way to deal with this. Just withdraw your plan and put more money into clean, renewable energy sources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could introduce these into the public record, I have several hundred letters. Thank you.
Who would that be? Great, thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, I would like to first, my name is Joey Rakan, and I'm with the California Ocean Outfall Group, and there, and I'm sure you've heard of our campaign on Facebook, the Stop the Diablo Canyon Seismic Testing. And we have 2,600 members and growing, and I'd like to say that we have an enormous job done by staff, and I support the staff recommendation 100%. I'm also speaking for Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. I'd like to thank Greenpeace for their 50,000 some odd letters. The issue of safety should not be raising its head here, because if this were about safety, the $64 million allocated by the PUC would be going to plan upgrades. That is not the case. Also, I would submit to you that seismic testing itself is a threat. And it's a threat because it allows PG&E to delay removing a nuclear waste plant that is situated on the confluence of 13 earthquake faults. Finally, I would like to say that I live in a beautiful place. I am blessed. I am truly blessed. I live on the Central Coast. I live in a town called Los Osos. It's a hamlet by the sea. And I often visit my sister city, Morro Bay. And the one thing that you may not know about Morro Bay is we have our own porpoise, and they can't get away from this kind of stuff. And there's one thing I want to say more than even just protecting those beautiful porpoises. They are the friendliest porpoises in the world. They are literally known as the friendliest porpoises in the world. And I hope that you'll listen to staff. And I don't want to hear this come back next year in another configuration and let's use the oil boat. None of that. Let's just show them what California's made of. You can't do that here. I thank you for this opportunity to address you today.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Sikich. I'm the Coastal Resources Director for Heal the Bay, and I'm here today to stand in opposition to this project. I greatly support the presentations given by NRDC Surfrider and the rest of the Coalition of Environmental Groups this morning before lunch, and just wanted to add a little personal anecdote to why, as a Southern California organization, we're so concerned about this proposal. I was very involved in the designation process for the marine protected areas off our coast, and as you know, their goal is to function as a network. So even though the impacts of this proposed project may be most hard and most detrimental to the marine protected area just offshore, these network effects could be very compromised if this project is approved. And as a steward of these MPAs, I really feel that our challenge moving forward is to see that they are given holistic protection, not just from fishing issues and declines in populations of marine life, but also from water quality issues, sonar issues, and everything else. These are truly special, iconic places, and I think your actions today will really give a message to other agencies that may be grappling with similar issues. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Julie Tacker. I live in Los Osos on the shore of Box 4. It's also the National Estuary, Morro Bay National Estuary. And not only your staff analysis, but certainly the EIR, is completely silent on elevated decibel levels in the ocean's incubator. The project proponent, actually I found it today right here, the subject or the quote is a zone of lethality. You can't approve any project that has a zone of lethality. Not only is PG&E in the room today, I noticed Southern California Edison is here. The cumulative impacts of a similar project at Songs has to be analyzed before any blasting in our ocean.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Kazini. I'm a commercial fisherman and resident of Morro Bay, California. I've been a commercial fisherman for over 44 years. I'd like to tell you that in the mid-'80s, I was the boat of choice and the fisherman that participated in one of the seismic survey studies. It was the effects of geophysical survey work on Rakan startle response and dispersal. That study used a single air gun, 190 decibels, fired every 30 seconds. It showed over a 50% reduction in catch. PG&E proposes 250 decibels every 15 seconds. I think it's quite a bit dramatically different. I also like to say that don't allow PG&E to use the war chest of money to mitigate with a few. I don't believe the impacts are mitigatable in the fishing business at all, and I think that this project should not go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm surprised that Aaron Brockovich isn't here. There's so much support opposed to this project. I run the...
We haven't gotten to all the speaker slips yet.
Okay. My name is Barbara Lonsdale. I run the Environmental Committee, and I'm on the board of the Venice Neighborhood Council. We have a lot of surfers there, and I know that they're opposed to this project because I've dated half of them. Yes. I do think that California should focus on renewable energy. Seriously, uranium is a finite resource. It's going to probably run out in 50 years that I've read, so why are we spending any money, time, or energy on nuclear energy? Something that Europe, particularly Germany, is getting rid of. They exceed us in solar energy. Why? It's not even that sunny there, I'm not sure. But there are many dangers in nuclear energy. The disposal of it is not environmentally friendly, and the fact that it's in California next to so many fault zones is just not safe. For my real job, I do tours, and I just want to say it's not good business if dead dolphins are washing up on the shore. So, thank you.
My name is Dave Kirk. I'm president of the Port San Luis Commercial Fishermen's Organization. We have about 70 fishermen. And I'd like to give you a point of view from a fisherman. For me, this has been hours, more than 1,000 hours of my time, traveling to more than a dozen meetings, getting bullied off the water by a 3D low-energy boat with no forehand notice, causing lots of lost days fishing and reduced catch. Our 2 halibut trawlers have been hardest hit as the fish are extremely sensitive and have fled our waters and is yet to be returned. And we have submitted claims to PG&E that have been denied. I can only dream of the day when the seawater intake of death at Diablo Canyon ceases to flow and the abalone and schools of blue bass and Johnny bass return.
Good afternoon. My name is Julia Manger. I'm a scientist by training. I'm also a mother of surfers, and I'm myself an avid swimmer and a member of Sierra Club. Like I said, I'm an engineer by training. It's not possible to always do real-time, real-world testing on the engineering projects. I really think that the idea of doing underwater seismic testing is totally bogus. It will not serve any purpose other than ruining the marine life, ruining the lives of fishermen, as we have just heard. And God knows what else are we going to trigger, since we have no idea how these faults interact and how it might possibly damage the plant further. What we do not know, what we know is that if it was today, we would not allow the building of this power plant at its current location. So I would very much I would very much urge you to deny this permit.
Thank you.
My name is Justin Taylor Dobson. I'm here representing Save the Whales. I have a statement written by the Executive Director, Maris Seidenstecker I, and it goes like this. Dear Commission members, Save the Whales objects to seismic testing to determine if newly discovered faults are connected to existing ones in the area of the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant. Diablo was constructed over a known fault line, the danger disregarded, and the plant opened in 1973. Estimates of the numbers of whales, dolphins, porpoises, seals, and sea otters that could be taken number in the thousands. Animals such as cetaceans might not be killed outright, but suffer and die later from hearing loss or environmental impacts. We will never know if an animal has been killed if its body sinks. Killing or harming animals in ostensibly protected areas is against the law and the Endangered Species Act. We ask that PG&E's request be denied. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
This may not be global warming, but this project is exemplary of the man-made stupidity that is degrading and destroying our environment and planet. What they want to do is send high-energy shock waves into fault lines, which could actually exacerbate earthquakes, in order to recertify outdated and outmoded technology that the people don't even want. And what they have is $64 million plus that is going to be charged back to ratepayers, you, me, the people of California who don't want this technology, in order to profit who? The PG&E stockholders. That's what this is all about. Profit for very few people, for short-term profit at the destruction of the rest of us. Thank you.
I was curious. I'm sitting back here. I see a lot of hands coming up. And could I hear by a vote, who is opposed to this project? Wow. Does anybody dare vote aye? Wow. That is
Please, I've asked if you raise your hands.
I'm sorry. That was my time. And our time. Miss, I with all due respect.
It's getting worse. I would continue.
With all due respect, it's getting better. And if we're going to do better if we oppose projects like this. Harm prevention, harm prevention, harm prevention. I go to the doctor, I said it hurts when I do this. Doctor says, don't do that. He also says, let me give you a word of wisdom. And he says, and I said, what did you say? I said, I couldn't hear you because PG&E was blasting